I drive a pickup, a 2018 Silverado. I mention that because if you drive a truck, you know how it feels. You know how it handles when it's empty versus when it's loaded. You can feel the weight in the suspension. 2 years ago, I was doing a cross-country move from Arizona to Oklahoma. I decided to drive through the night to beat the heat. Around 3:30 a.m., I was on a stretch of I-40 that is basically just a black void. No streetlights, just desert on both sides. I was struggling to keep my eyes open, so I pulled off at a scenic view turnout just to stretch my legs. It wasn't a real rest stop, no bathrooms, no vending machines, just a paved loop and a trash can. I got out, walked a lap around the truck to wake myself up, and checked the tarp over my truck bed. I had all my boxes strapped down back there. Everything looked tight, secure. I got back in the cab, locked the doors, and merged back onto the highway. For the first 10 miles, everything was normal. But then, I heard it. It came from directly behind my head. At first, I thought a strap had come loose and was slapping against the rear window. I turned my radio down. Thump. Thump. It wasn't the wind. It was rhythmic, like a knuckle rapping on glass. I looked in my rearview mirror, but it was pitch black in the bed of the truck. I couldn't see anything but the reflection of my own dashboard lights. I told myself I was hallucinating from lack of sleep. I turned the radio up and pressed harder on the gas, pushing 80 miles per hour. Then, the truck swayed. Not from the wind. It felt like a heavy weight had shifted in the bed. I gripped the wheel, my knuckles turning white. I knew, logically, that I had tied everything down. Nothing should be moving. I checked the rearview mirror again, and my heart stopped. My brake lights had flared for a second when I let off the gas, and the red glow illuminated the truck bed. The tarp had been cut open, and slowly, terrifyingly, a pale hand was sliding up the back glass of the cab. I didn't just see a hand. I saw a face rise up from the cargo. It was a man, gaunt, with matted hair. He wasn't trying to get my attention for help. He was trying to find the latch to the sliding rear window. He was trying to get in. He pressed his face against the glass. He was screaming something at me, but the wind noise drowned it out. His eyes were wide, bloodshot, and focused entirely on the back of my neck. He started pounding on the glass with both fists. The glass vibrated against my headrest. I panicked. I didn't want to stop. If I stopped, he would be able to shatter that glass. So I did the only thing I could think of. I slammed on the brakes, hard. I heard a sickening thud as his body went flying forward, slamming into the back of the cab, then tumbling over the side rails onto the highway shoulder. I didn't wait to see if he got up. I floored it. I drove 100 miles per hour until I saw the lights of a 24-hour truck stop. When the police checked my truck later, they found a slash in the tarp big enough for a person to crawl through. But they found something else, too. Buried under my boxes, wrapped in a dirty blanket, was a hunting knife and a roll of duct tape. I don't know when he climbed in. It could have been at the scenic view. It could have been at the gas station 3 hours prior. I drove hundreds of miles with him right behind my head, just waiting for the right moment to cut his way through. There's a specific kind of darkness you only find on backcountry roads. It's not just the absence of light. It's the feeling that the darkness has weight to it, that it's pressing against the glass. I learned the hard way that when the GPS suggests a faster route to avoid highway construction at 2 a.m., you just take the construction. I was driving home from a late shift at the warehouse. The route took me off the interstate and onto a 2-lane state road that snaked through heavy forest. For the first 20 minutes, it was fine. Just me and the high beams cutting through the fog. But then, I rounded a sharp curve and had to slam on my brakes. Sitting dead center in my lane was a sedan. It was an older model, maybe a Honda or a Toyota. Pale gray. No lights were on. No hazards. No brake lights. Just a dark, heavy chunk of metal sitting in the middle of the road in the pitch black. I stopped about 30 feet back. My heart was already hammering against my ribs. My first thought was an accident. Maybe they hit a deer? I flashed my high beams, expecting to see a driver wave, or maybe someone stumble out looking for help. The light flooded their rear window. The car was empty. I sat there for what felt like forever, just staring at that car. The logical part of my brain said, "Go check. Someone might be hurt in the ditch." The primal part of my brain screamed, "Put it in reverse, now." I unbuckled my seatbelt. I don't know why I did it. I guess I didn't want to be the guy who drove past a dying person. I grabbed the heavy flashlight I keep in my center console and stepped out into the cold air. It was dead silent. No crickets. Just the ticking of my engine cooling down. I walked toward the gray sedan, sweeping the beam of my light across the trees on either side of the road. Nothing but thick brush. When I got to the driver's side window of the stalled car, I shined the light inside. Key in the ignition. Radio display on, but volume down. And on the passenger seat, a map. Not a phone. An actual paper map, unfolded. It looked normal, except for one thing. The driver's side door handle. I looked closely at the inner handle. It had been ripped off. Not broken. Ripped. Like someone had tried to keep the door from opening so hard they snapped the plastic. That's when the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I realized the engine of the gray car wasn't just warm. It was running. It was idling so quietly I hadn't heard it. I spun around to run back to my truck. That's when I saw it. My truck was about 30 feet away. My headlights were still on, blindingly bright against the fog. And in the red glow of my own taillights, I saw a silhouette. Someone had come out of the woods behind my truck while I was inspecting the decoy. They were crouching by my rear tire. I couldn't see a face, just the shape of a large man in a dark jacket. I didn't yell. I didn't ask what he was doing. I sprinted. I ran past the decoy car, diving into the ditch on the other side of the road. As soon as my boots hit the mud, I heard the man shout something. Not English, or at least nothing I recognized, and the sound of heavy boots slapping against the pavement charging toward me. I scrambled up the embankment, tearing my jeans on briars, and plunged into the woods. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I couldn't get back to my truck before he got to me. I hid behind a thick oak tree about 50 yards in, covering my mouth with my hand to stifle my breathing. I watched through the branches. The man didn't follow me into the woods. He stopped at the edge of the road. Then, 2 other men stepped out from the tree line near the gray car. They weren't looking for me. They went straight to my truck. They opened the doors and unlocked the back. They were looking for cargo. I stayed in those woods for 4 hours until the sun came up. Eventually, they just left. They got in the gray sedan and drove off, leaving my truck right there in the middle of the road with the doors wide open. I don't know who they were. Road pirates, cartel, or just opportunists looking for an easy target. But I know one thing for sure. They didn't break down. They were fishing. And I took the bait. Thanks for watching. If you have a true story, send it to acestruestories@gmail.com. If you have an idea for a future video, leave a comment. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Remember, there's always another story.